Hello everybody, I am CFI Luke. Today we are going to make endorsements for pilots much easier. And we're going to do this by looking at Advisory Circular 6165 Juliet. This is your guide to endorsements. So once you look through this and understand this, things will get much easier. Starting off, before any student comes into us, they need to do three things. We have to make sure that they are a U.S. citizen or that they get their TSA background check done. Then we need to have them fill out an IACRA form for a student pilot certificate, and then they need to have a medical. These are three things that they need to do before they solo. The way to remember this is the acronym TIM. So T for TSA, I for IACRA, M for medical. Once they do all of these things, and then we give them training, and then we find that they are ready to, start their solo process, we can start giving out endorsements. So that's what we are going to be looking at here today. So most of this stuff in the advisory circular, great information, read through it. But for today's purposes, we're going to skip to the appendix alpha and just look through sample endorsements. All right, so as you can see here, it's broken down into specific sections. So we're going to start off with student pilot endorsements because that's what we are talking about right now. Every student pilot is going to have to solo at some point during the training process. There are three endorsements that they are all going to need. So the way we remember it is BACON. So Bravo, Charlie, November. So Alpha 3 is the Bravo. So they need to do a pre-solo aeronautical knowledge test, and that would be graded to 100%. They need to do a pre-solo, all the pre-solo flight training required before they solo. And once we find them ready and we want to authorize them specifically for solo flight, we can give them the Alpha 6 or the November, and that will authorize them to fly and act as PIC for 90 days. Now, this is fairly basic. If you want to look at more specifics of each of these endorsements, all you got to do is click, and then it'll take us to what we're actually going to fill out. So this is what we are actually going to write in their logbook. But the specific regulations on what you need to do is 6187 November. So when you're learning all this stuff, make sure to flip open your FAR and read through the specific regulations. That way you are understanding what specifically you are endorsing them for. And if you see here for solo flight 90 days, we are authorizing them to fly solo in a specific make and model of an aircraft. So if they're learning how to fly in a Cessna 172, we give them this 90-day endorsement for the Cessna 172. So they can't act as PIC in a Piper Archer unless we give them another Alpha 6 in that specific make and model of aircraft. However, as you know, flight training takes a while. So there are other endorsements that we might have to give our pilot. So that would be if their solo time, building up hours, getting proficient takes longer than 90 days. We will just go down here and give them the Alpha 7 or the 6187 Papa. So that is solo flight for an additional 90 days. So this is an endorsement that you can keep giving your students while they are practicing flying. There's some other endorsements that we might give our students, such as flight training at night so they can fly solo during the night. If you fly in and out of a specific Bravo, we have Alpha 12 down here. And then eventually your student will get to the point where they are going to be doing cross countries. So there are a couple stages to cross countries. The main one, most people just do this, is solo cross-country flights of more than 50 nautical miles. So Alpha 9 is that endorsement that authorizes you to do solo cross-country flights. But you also need Alpha 10 to actually have the privilege to do the flight on that specific day. So there's a limitation on Alpha 9, and it's that before any solo cross country of more than 50 nautical miles, an authorized instructor has to review your flight plan with you and endorse you for that day. So if we look at that, we go down to here, Alpha 10, I reviewed the cross country flight plan of so-and-so. I find their planning and preparation to be correct to make the solo flight from this airport to this airport via this route with landings at this airport on and this make and model of aircraft on this specific day. And then the CFI can add specific limitations to that. So maybe the weather's, we don't want them flying into clouds. So make sure they have a ceiling of more than 5,000 feet. Now, there are different types of cross countries that you can do. So the Bravo, Charlie, November, or Bacon as a mnemonic device to remember them, are pre-solo endorsements for flying within the traffic pattern at your airport or in the local airspace. So let's say you want them to go to another airport because it's less busy and it's within 25 nautical miles. We can give them this Alpha 8, which is 6193 Bravo 1. So they can do solo takeoffs and landings at another airport within 25 nautical miles of our airport. So again, this one is for the express purpose of practicing takeoffs and landings at another airport. So they have to fly to that specific airport. Let's say the airport that you want to send them to is more than 25 nautical miles, but less than 50. We can give them this Alpha 11. So 6193 Bravo 2. The reason why we would give them these endorsements is because these endorsements, we don't have to verify their cross-country flight plan like in Alpha 9. So they can keep doing these cross-country flights until we find that they are proficient and they're ready to do the long cross-country solos. So these are the basics of student pilot endorsements. Now let's get into what do they need for their test. If you look up top, we have prerequisites for the practical test endorsement. We have Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. Basically, everybody is going to need Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 before they go and take their test. Alpha 1, they meet all the prerequisites for the practical test. Alpha 2, you reviewed the deficiencies identified on their airman knowledge test. That's not it, though. We also have the private pilot license specific endorsements that they are going to need. So there's two of these. So one of them is Alpha 32. If you provide the ground training for the aeronautical knowledge test, then you will have to give them the Alpha 32. Most people will just use King's School or Sporties, and they will receive the Alpha 32 from them. Alpha 33 is what you're going to give them specifically for the private pilot license test. So right here, flight proficiency for the practical test in regards to 61, 103, 107, 109, everything pertaining to a private pilot student. The nice thing is, this is everything that we need to know for a private pilot, for just a normal private pilot. And if we want to learn the endorsements for other tests, pretty straightforward. So for a commercial pilot endorsement, do they need any student pilot endorsements? Well, they can already fly solo, so we don't actually have to give them any of the student pilot endorsements. So they don't have to come to us to get those PIC endorsements. So all the commercial pilot is going to need is going to be the Alpha 1 and Alpha 2, just like the private pilot, and then the specific commercial pilot endorsements. So if you're giving them the ground for their aeronautical knowledge test, Alpha 34, and then Alpha 35 before they take their test, saying that they're proficient for their flight in regards to the commercial regulations. All right, so not too complicated. Make sure you go through and read all of the regs so you understand what the student needs to receive these endorsements and what specifically these endorsements are authorizing them to do. because some of them authorize them for certain privileges, and some of them you can impose limitations on. The regulations and the advisory circular will tell you which ones those are. Now, there are some different types of endorsements that we might give. So starting off, we have Alpha 65. So this is a completion of a flight review in regards to 61, 56 Alpha and Charlie. Anytime you give a flight review, this will be the endorsement that you are giving upon completion. And there are some other endorsements in here, the ones I want to look at. If you are going to be receiving or giving an endorsement for a complex, high-performance aircraft, pressurized aircraft for high-altitude operations, a tailwheel aircraft, all these endorsements are right here. So if you've received an endorsement for one of these aircraft, flip open your logbook and take a peek and see if you received, your Alpha 68, 69, 70, or 71. Now, the tricky situation, well, it seems like it's tricky, but it's really not too bad, is what happens if the pilot that you are training isn't actually a student pilot? Well, they're a student for a fixed-wing aircraft, but they are a private pilot in a helicopter. So once you have a private pilot's license, you can't get a student pilot license anymore, meaning we can't give out the student pilot endorsements to authorize them as PIC anymore. So what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be giving them different endorsements once we find they are ready to start flying solo. Alpha 72, to act as PIC of an aircraft in solo operations when the pilot does not hold an appropriate class and category rating. We can look at 6131 Delta 2. So this would be the endorsement that we would give to them to allow them to act as PIC. Once they are ready to take the test, instead of giving them the private pilot endorsement, we are going to be giving them Alpha 74, an additional aircraft category or class rating other than ATP. So we can go down here. Again, you can read through this. This is basically all that you need to know starting off. And now that I've equipped you with the knowledge, all you need to go through and just read everything in here, understand the different types of endorsements. There are a ton of them, but there are certain ones that you can skip. Like, for instance, I'm not going to be ever training recreational pilots, so I'm going to skip the recreational pilot endorsements. Then also make sure that you go through and read the specific regulations in the FAR to have a better understanding of the endorsements that you're giving out and the prerequisites that the student pilot needs to receive these endorsements. I'm CFI Luke. Hope you learned something in this video, and I will see you next time.